Okay, we're on step number 6. We're making the casing for the pants. We're not doing this step over here where they tell you to stitch it down for the elastic. Don't worry about that. Just make sure that the seams are pressed open. It's the same way we did when we made the placket for the wallet. It's a clean finish technique. So you're going to turn a 1/4 inch, and then you're going to turn a little bit bigger than an inch, enough to cover the elastic. So the easiest way to do this is to put the pants, turn them inside out, and place them on the ironing board this way so that you can go around in a circle. Measure with your seam gauge 1/4 inch. And you'll press that down all the way around. And you'll just keep moving the pants around as you go until you have 1/4 inch pressed down all the way around across the top. After you have folded 1/4 inch and pressed it down around the whole top of the pant, you're going to fold again 1 1/4 inches. Fold that down 1 1/4 inches, and you'll iron that all the way around the top. So it should look like, when you turn it to the right side, that your buttonholes are just about 1/4 inch from the top of that. Make sure it's 1 1/4 inches. Our elastic is 3/4 inch, so you need enough room for the elastic, and also the drawstring has to fit in there. And you'll need to stitch this really close to this edge. You'll stitch all the way around, and when you get to where you started, leave a little opening so that we can insert the elastic with a safety pin. Start and stop at the back seam so that you don't have anything funny looking in the front. So you'll pretend like this is the back seam. You'll start stitching here, go all the way around. When you get here, stop when you have about 1.5 fingers, 2 finger opening there. If you don't fold this, if you make it too small, the elastic can't slide inside the casing and you won't be able to fit your drawstring in there. So make sure it's 1 1/4 inches. This is the casing for the elastic. It's been folded and ironed 1/4 inch and now another 1 1/4 inches. This is the back, so the buttonholes are in the front. You're going to start here and line up with the inside edge of the presser foot because you want to stitch very close to the casing. Back stitch there. So the inside edge of the presser foot, so it's an edge stitch. It's like what we did on the placket. Go all the way around. When you get to where you started, leave your little opening for the elastic. I finished sewing the casing and I've left an opening here in the back to put the elastic in. If you're making the pajamas for yourself, I'll show you in class how to measure the elastic. You want it to be snug enough to hold the pants up, but not so tight that it's going to be uncomfortable because you'll have a drawstring also. I'm making these for my mom, and she lives in Indiana, so I'm going to have to sort of guess. They're extra large, and so I'm going to see if I make it about that much smaller, so when I stretch it, it should scrunch the pants up. So I'm going to cut it there and insert it and see how it looks. I can always cut a little bit off, so it's better to maybe be a little bigger than smaller because you can always cut some off. Now the elastic is smaller than the circumference of the pants. So when you're inserting the elastic, be careful not to lose the tail. Go ahead and put a safety pin. Don't put it too close to the edge. This elastic will unravel. So I kind of give myself a little double thing through there with the safety pin. Pin it. And then I start inserting it into the casing. Don't let it get twisted. Feel it with your hand. Make sure it stays flat. And you're going to keep pushing and pulling till you get it all the way around and it comes out the other side where we'll sew the two ends together. So to keep the tail from disappearing inside the casing and having to thread it through there again, take a pin and pin it down so that you don't lose the tail. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. Here's the one end that I pinned down, and here's the end that has a safety pin on, and I've made my way all the way around. And so I'm looking at how the elastic looks inside. So it should look a little scrunchy like that. And then we're ready to sew these two pieces together. So again, you want to make sure the elastic is not twisted. And unpin that. And what you'll have to do is kind of pull pull it out so that you have enough to get it under the machine. Take the safety pin out. And then you'll overlap these two edges. And then go ahead and, pull it out enough to get it in the machine. Back stitch up and down here, back stitch up and down here, overlap it. And then when you're done, you'll pull that back inside the casing and then close the casing. And after that, it's time for the drawstring. There's two parts to the drawstring. So you're going to first sew 5/8 where you have the notched edge. After you sew the notched edge together, press the seam open. Then you're going to fold the drawstring face to face, and you can press it, and then you'll start at one end and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so line up this edge with the edge of the presser foot. The instructions say 3/8, but it makes it too narrow and it's hard to turn if it's too skinny. So go ahead and do 1/4, and when you get to where the seam is, leave, I don't know, about like 3 fingers on each side open, because it will turn it. It's such a long drawstring to turn if you sew the whole thing down. We'll turn it using a pin towards the center when we finish sewing that. When you're ready to turn it around, you'll open up you'll put the safety pin on one edge, not through both layers of the fabric, so one edge of the drawstring on the outside. Don't put it too close to the edge because you can pull it through the fabric, so give yourself a little bit of fabric inside there. Close the safety pin, and then you put the head of the pin inside your drawstring, and then you have to push and pull. So getting it started, you'll need to get the fabric around it, and once you get that, you push, and then you slide the fabric. Don't let the fabric get bunched up on the edge. It will cause a traffic jam and you'll get stuck. So you keep it smooth. Every time you push and then slide, make sure you slide it so it's even. You're going to continue that until you get to the opening that you left where the notched seam was. When you finally get to where you've left that opening, you can go ahead and grab the drawstring and continue pulling it until it comes all the way through. Then go ahead and take the safety pin and go to the other end and do the same thing for the other side. After you turn both sides of the drawstring right side out, then you'll go to the iron and you'll iron in the seam allowance on each of the opening edges and fold it on top of each other, kind of like what we did with the wallet, and iron that down, and then you'll sew very close to the edge to close it. After you've sewn the opening closed, close to the edge, be careful when you go over the seam allowance because it's going to be kind of thick there. Then you will take your safety pin again, put it through the end of the drawstring, and now you will use this to thread the drawstring through the casing. You're going to go in through the buttonhole and do the same thing till you come around on the other side and come through the other buttonhole. When you're threading your drawstring through the casing, make sure you keep it on the front part of the elastic. Don't let it get twisted around the elastic. Make sure that the whole time the drawstring stays to the front side of the elastic. After you have gotten it through to the other side, you have both ends here, even it out, pull it and stretch it so that it's evenly distributed inside there. And then you can finish the edge by either folding a little tiny bit of that inside and stitching it down, or you can simply just tie a little overhand knot at the end of it. Then the last step to finish your pajamas is, I would turn them inside out to do it. I think that will be easier. Is the hem. And that's your last step before you turn them in. So here on the instructions, turn 1/4 inch and then turn 1 inch, just like you did on the waistband for a clean finish. So iron, 1/4 inch, iron it, 1 inch, iron it, then stitch close to the edge. Then clip all the threads and fold them up neatly. Answer the questions on the rubric and turn in your pajama pants.